Okay, that's your co-main. Oh boy, we did it again. UFC 258, our main event. Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns, the training partners. Damn, this is going to be a good fight. I think it's my man Locke up on this one.
Yeah, obviously on a fight that's riddled with very, very close fights, you got a chalky champion coming in here, and I think he's very much deserving of it. I think he's gonna probably go down as one of the best 170ers to ever do it. And even though he may not have the most entertaining approach to his fights, you know, he had that one banger or firefight against Colby Covington, but for the majority of his fights, the guy goes out there, you know, lays on his opponents, lands some good shots, and just controls the fight for the majority of the 25 minutes or 15 minutes when he was fighting 3-round fights. But another guy that was similar in that back in the day was our guy GSP, right? A lot of people are like, the guy's boring. You know, he just goes out there and just wins his fights, doesn't really try to go for it and try to get the finish or anything like that. But a win is a win at the end of the day. You know what I mean? You're walking home with that win bonus, and that's exactly what matters to some of these guys. You know, GSP had the whole I got Canada behind me, so he was able to sell some pay-per-views and all that type of stuff. Kamaru Usman, I'm not sure how many people down in Nigeria are going to be buying pay-per-views to watch this guy fight, but you know, he still goes out there and he wins. Now, I wanted to talk about Gilbert Burns a little bit in terms of, I think that people are almost overblowing how good he's been looking as of late. 4-0 at welterweight, great. Looks amazing. He's clearly making improvements as well, too, right? His striking is definitely taking huge leaps and bounds in a positive direction, especially when he's lined himself up with Henry Hoof down there at Sanford MMA, Hard Knocks before it was called, and even Black Zillions before that. But he came into the UFC pretty much just as a jiu-jitsu guy, and he's one of the best cases that we've seen for a guy that's been making and rounding out his striking game. And it's worked out for him, right? Go out there and knock out a 42-year-old, 43-year-old Damian Maia. Now he goes out there and rocks and drops Tyron Woodley in their first round, and he dominates him for the majority of that 25 minutes and pretty much gets the same scorecards that Kamaru Usman got. But we know what we're getting with Tyron Woodley at this point in time, right? The guy just backs up, waits to land that bomb, telegraphs it so much that his opponents see it coming. They're able to get out of the way, and they're just able to counter with their own game. Like, getting a victory like that over Woodley is just not that impressive to me nowadays. But I do want to make one comparison in terms of when Usman fought Woodley and when Gilbert Burns fought Woodley. So when Gilbert Burns fought Woodley, he landed a total of 156 strikes and accrued 8 minutes of control time. You know what Kamaru Usman did to this guy? Landed 336 strikes and had 18 minutes of control time in a 25-minute fight. That's the difference between these two guys. Kamaru Usman has that next level. Now, aesthetically, it looks like Gilbert Burns probably whooped his ass a little bit more because he dropped him a couple times. But like, when you look at the statistics, when you look at the DraftKings score as well, too, Kamaru Usman absolutely blows his performance out of the water, right? But Usman is just another step up compared to what Burns has been going up against. Go out there and knock out a guy in Damian Maia. How does that affect his fight here against Kamaru Usman? Going out there and blowing out a guy like Tyron Woodley, how does that affect his performance here against Usman, who's clearly on a different level? To me, welterweight is like Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington, Gilbert Burns, and then the rest of the welterweight division, right? There's other than whatever happens with Khamzat Chimaev and Leon Edwards. Hopefully we eventually get that fight soon, considering that they just canceled it. But I don't think anybody's going to dethrone Kamaru Usman outside of Colby Covington, who has a very similar game plan, right? The guy goes out there, puts on a pace, puts out volume, puts on pressure, and we saw it in that fight. It was pretty much 2-2 heading into that fifth round. All the judges were pretty much split on the scorecards, and Kamaru Usman pulled away with it. And that just shows you the guy has... He's strong. He has that wrestling advantage in pretty much all of his fights. His clinch work is absolutely amazing. And the fact that his cardio is able to hold up for 25 minutes allows him to get away with fighting boringly. Like, he's just holding guys up against the cage and really getting his game going in that aspect. And people can say, oh, it's not that impressive. Then why hasn't anybody stopped it? Nobody's going to be able to stop it. Gilbert Burns might have a little bit of a threat if Kamaru wants to take this fight to the ground and test the jiu-jitsu of him. But I don't think that's going to be the approach here. Right, I think he's going to push him up against the cage, really start to wear on Gilbert Burns. I have questions regarding Gilbert Burns' cardio, and people can say all they want about, him going 25 minutes with Tyron Woodley. He had zero resistance to deal with it in that fight, so obviously he's going to be able to go 25 minutes there. But with Usman, I think he's just going to put it too much on Burns, wear on him. Then maybe in the fourth and fifth rounds, we start to see him take this fight to the ground and really start to get his ground and pound going a little bit more. A late Kamaru Usman finish wouldn't surprise me, but I do think that this could be another quintessential Usman fight where he racks up a bunch of strikes, racks up a bunch of control time, and wins this fight via decision, and continues to cement himself as one of the best 170 pounders out there. I do believe that Burns has some solid striking. He might even have a bit of an advantage there, especially from the power standpoint. But Kamaru is so good at winning rounds, so good at winning minutes, and so good at nullifying the game that you bring to the table. And again, he's already gone 200 live rounds with this guy in the training room. And people always want to put it on as a bonus on the Burns side of things. Why is it not a bonus for Usman? He's the guy that was running the rounds as well too. So just because Burns saw him for 200 rounds doesn't mean that Usman can't take anything away from that either, right? And last thing I'll say about this fight, I do like the fact that we saw Usman go over to Trevor Whitman when he was looking for another camp. That's another high-level coach who doesn't have a giant roster that he has to look after, like the Sanford MMAs or the ATTs or the Jackson Winks, right? They got like 100 guys in the UFC, whereas Trevor Whitman, what has he got? Like Justin Gaethje, he's got Rose Namajunas. Apparently Eddie Alvarez made the jump over there as well now too. So he's able to get that one-on-one time with Trevor Whitman, really start to round out his hands, which is what Trevor Whitman's skill set mainly is. So yeah, I think we're going to see another improved version of Kamaru Usman. His knees, obviously, that's one thing that's a little bit of an issue that a lot of people want to talk about. But I do think that he's compensating for it with doing other work. Like this, the main thing that he says he's not able to do is road work. Just go out there, run, and try to cut weight that way. He's able to supplement it with other forms of training. So I'm sure he's good to go. And having a mastermind like Trevor Whitman in your back pocket, I think it only bodes well for him as well too. So I'll end off on this. I got Kamaru Usman winning this fight via decision. People are going to always make a case for the challenger, just like they did with GSP. But I think it's just Kamaru Usman all day. I got Usman. Don't mind him at that minus 250 range that he's at. And I think he was this fight via decision.
Love it. Cody Saftic, who you taking?
Yeah, so I don't think the Trevor Whitman effect's going to really have much to play. And Usman actually did this camp for the George Masvidal fight with Trevor Whitman as well. And if anything, his hands look worse in that fight than they did in the Colby Covington fight. So I don't think that he's suddenly going to come out here and be a fantastic striker, but I think that his striking is better volume, better pace, better action-packed than Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns is a little flashier. He's got a little more power, a little more substance, but he's a natural 155-pounder, and you've seen him fight at 155 to mix results. Was never the most in-shape 55er, was never the biggest 55er, but did struggle to make weight. And then coming up to 170, I mean, he's been gifted kind of like an easier road, so to speak. He's fought Alexei Konchenko. He's fought Gunnar Nelson. He's fought guys that are not in the top 15 of the sport, and yet that's good enough to get him into a title fight position. The win over Tyron Woodley, there's nothing that you can take out of that. Tyron Woodley's not even a top 15 guy in the UFC at this point. I just don't to put things into realistic. This is just my take. Everyone's got their own opinion on it, right? But the number one guy in the world is Usman. We all know that, right? The number two guy in the world is not Burns, it's Covington, right? The number three guy in the world is Stephen Thompson. The number four guy in the world is Leon Edwards. The number five guy in the world is George Masvidal. The number six guy in the world is Michael Chiesa. And by the way, Burns versus Chiesa, you might be surprised about that one. Vicente Luque, I picked Vicente Luque over Gilbert Burns. And by the way, he's going to kill Tyron Woodley. In my personal opinion, Gilbert Burns is probably the number 7 or 8th guy in the division. But everybody else is tied up. No one wants to fight Edwards. We can't sell a fight. Woodley's gone. Colby Covington's got some injuries. Khamzat Chimaev, who I didn't even list there, but he also probably beats Gilbert Burns. We got to see a little more of him before we can make claims like that. But what I'm saying is you've got definitively the best welterweight in Kamaru Usman versus not a guy that's even a top 5 guy. He's just a guy that is, hey, we need to sell pay-per-views. We need to fill cards. This is an absolute porous card, top to bottom, not looking good. And we're going to give you a title fight. And it's not even the number 1 and 2 guy in the world. It's not even the number 1 and 3 guy in the world. It's not even the number 1 and 4 guy in the world. It's like the number 1 versus the number 7th guy in the world. So where's Burns' key to victory? The submission, right? He's submitted one guy in the last 5 years in MMA. So I don't see the submission. While he's going to have to outwork Usman. Nobody works out Usman. And last but not least, right? People want to hate on Usman because he's boring, right? He's Marty Snoozman, right? I mean, he's Marty from Nebraska. Oh, this guy's boring. Oh, this guy 30%. Oh, this guy with the foot stomps. Okay, here's the thing, right? Who's the greatest welterweight of all time? George St. Pierre. And everybody loved to complain that George, super boring. Before Khabib's recent run of quick finishes, he was a decision guy. He would take you down, dominate you, try and do the decision. Everyone said he was boring. Everyone used to say Colby Covington was boring. And most of all, right, I personally, the most boring fighter currently on the UFC roster is John Jones. His fights are like watching paint dry. They're awful, right? The days of fighting Alexander Gustafsson tooth and nail, or, the second DC fight was pretty entertaining. Those days are gone, man. Now it's just like rinse and repeat bullshit. It's not entertaining. It's domination. It's winning. He goes out there and he wins. It's not about taking these unnecessary risks. It's about just winning how you know how to win. Usman knows how to win. He's got high ring IQ. He is 33 years old, but he knows Burns. Burns knows him, sure, but who's that going to benefit? It's going to benefit Usman, who it's easier to prepare for. You know, I know his go-to submissions. This is what he likes to set up. We've gone 200 times together. I know that's his go-to submission. Flip side to the Burns, it's like I know what he wants to do. He wants to take me down and you know, use his strength and his size and grind me. It's like, oh, can you do anything about that? It's like, no. You're not going to suddenly become a better wrestler than him. You're not suddenly going to become physically stronger than him. And Burns has lackluster cardio. You haven't really seen it against some of these lower level guys, maybe outside of the Konchenko fight, but like. Traditionally, the longer these fights goes, he typically does tire. He doesn't tire against Woodley because Woodley's throwing effectively negative punches through 20 minutes in the fight, right? So there's no pace for it to tire Burns, but like Usman puts a pace. And so that's why I think he's going to break him down. I like this fight. I like Usman for sure. Because they're friends, I'd say Usman by decision. He's a decision machine. He doesn't mind being a boring type fighter. Even in the Masvidal fight, when he did get rocked a little bit, he just reverts to his wrestling, reverts to his cage control, reverts to just, you know, out grappling you and securing the victory. And so worst case scenario, Burns does land something on him. I think Usman will just, you know, revert back to that wrestling and get the job done. And so, yeah. If he was really motivated and he was Gilbert Burns, like borrowed his lawnmower and never returned it, and he was just like, man, I'm mad at this guy. I could see Usman taking him out late in the fourth, late in the fifth. You know, maybe not like a Colby Covington-esque performance because he was mad at Colby. He had a hatred for Colby. But one of those performances where you just hit a guy so many times that he's tired and his mouth's open and he's bleeding and it's late and you break him. Could he break Gilbert Burns? Yes. But that friend factor is kind of in the back of my head that I think he'll just do what he normally does, and that's secure the decision victory.
Sounds good to me. Guru, hit us with that hot fire.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm going to give Gilbert Burns a little bit more credit than you guys. I think early on he's going to be pretty dangerous. I mean, he has that left hook that, it knocked out Damian Maia. I mean, Damian Maia's only been knocked out one other time in his whole career. So he is getting older, but, I mean, you have to give him some credit for that. And he's knocked down quite a few people with that check left hook. And that's something that Kamaru has to be careful with because you have seen him, you know, in the fights with Colby Covington and the fight with George Masvidal a little bit. I mean, when he's exchanging in the pocket, he does get clipped a little bit. And I don't think those guys have the same type of punching power that Gilbert Burns has. But Gilbert Burns, to me, is kind of basic. He's like a, you know, pocket boxer. He's gotten better with his kicking game a lot. I mean, you have to give Henry Hooft a lot of credit with both these guys because they're both grapplers. And I mean, now they both have pretty competent striking games. And, you know, I do think that, you know, the low calf kick and the body kicks from Gilbert Burns have, you know, helped him win a lot of these fights. But with Usman, I mean, Usman's really good at catching the kicks, and I think he's going to be able to probably negate that. I don't think Burns is going to want to throw as many of those. And I think early on, like I said, Burns is going to be live if he can get on the inside and force exchanges. Because, I mean, when you look at Usman, even against George Masvidal, I think he was only like 4 of 16 or 5 of 16 on takedowns. He did have a lot of control time, but I don't necessarily see him just taking down Gilbert Burns real easily and controlling him on the mat. I think that it's either going to be him controlling in the clinch or they're going to be striking more often than not. And I feel like early on Burns is going to be live, like I've been saying. But as the fight goes on, I mean, Usman, to me, he has underrated striking now. I mean, I think he has one of the best jabs in the UFC, man. I mean, his jab is really good. Like, if you watch the fight against Masvidal, the fight against Colby Covington, I mean, he destroyed both those guys with the jab. He has the really good front kicks to the body. And I just feel like he's going to be the more durable guy. He's obviously the lot bigger guy, and he's going to have the cardio advantage. So as long as he doesn't get finished, which I think is unlikely in these first 2 rounds, I just see him, you know, wearing on Kamaru or wearing on Burns and just taking it down the stretch. But I could see it being closer. I could see Burns even winning, you know, maybe 2 rounds. But I think it could be 49-46 for Usman more than likely.
I'm with you guys. I got Usman in this one, you know. Guru, you brought up the point, man. Burns might be getting a little bit disrespected. I think he will be dangerous early on, but I mean, Burns, we're talking about a guy, you know, look at the KOs, which don't get me wrong, they're impressive, but, you know, big looping shots. I mean, the guy can crack, that's for sure. Big time power. You know, some good subs, but Cody, you brought up the point, man. It's been a minute. And we're talking going up against a guy in Kamaru Usman who's never been knocked out. The one fight he lost, which was his second pro fight years ago, you know, he got his back taken standing and, you know, a guy locked in an RNC. I mean, is there a possibility that could happen here? Yeah. Has Burns probably tapped out Usman in training? Man, I'd hope so. They've been training partners for years. I just think Usman's the better guy here. The looping shots of Burns, I just think Usman's, you know, the straighter striker. I think he's the better striker. I think he's the better grappler. I think he's the bigger man. I think he's stronger. I think he takes Burns down. I don't think Burns takes Usman down. Nobody else has done it yet. Maybe Burns does have some secret, and I feel like a lot of people who are backing Burns, it just comes down to the fact that, you know, these guys know each other. These guys have trained together. I mean, Kamaru Usman's been a corner man for Gilbert Burns in fights. I mean, these guys really know each other beyond even the average training partner, you know. But at the same time, man, when it just comes down to it, Kamaru Usman is a dominant champion. I don't think Burns makes this fight even as close as Colby Covington, who, man, I got to give credit to. That was a very close fight until it got stopped. But for my money, man, Kamaru Usman is the best welterweight in the world. Burns could win this fight, but at the same time, man, I don't think this is the guy. I don't think Usman's reign is over. I got Usman in this one. I think he probably gets it done by decision like he usually does.